Good morning, everybody. Hearty welcome to all of you for today's session. Hope all of you have fared well in all the subjects. Okay, children, let's move on to our textbook. Today, in this session, I will be explaining you the fifth lesson from our supplementary reader, Footprints Without Feet. As you know, the other lessons 3 and 4 are deleted from our syllabus. So let's begin with the fifth lesson, Footprints Without Feet. As usual, let's see who is the writer of the lesson. Yes, H.G. Wells has written this story, Footprints Without Feet. The lesson, it's written by H.G. Wells. Okay, children, listen. Herbert George Wells, commonly known as H.G. Wells. He was born on 25th September 1866 in England. He was an English writer. He was prolific in many genres, writing dozens of novels, short stories, and works of social commentary, satire, biography, autobiography, and so on. He is now best remembered for his science fiction novels, and is often called the father of science fiction, along with Jules Verne and Hugo Gernsback. He took his last breath on 13th August 1946. Okay, children. So, now I am going to give you a brief summary of the lesson. It's quite an interesting story about a scientist named Griffin. It's quite an interesting story about a scientist named Griffin. He had been finding ways that could make an experiment to make a man visible or invisible. Invisible. As I told you, it's quite an interesting story about a scientist named Griffin. He had been finding ways that could make a man invisible. You know what's the meaning of invisible? Okay, so he had been finding ways that could make a man invisible. He got success in his experiment. He developed a formula with which he can become invisible, but can be touched and felt physically. Okay, so let's read and find out how he uses or how he misuses his powers for his own. Okay, let's go straight to our textbook and let me read the first portion. The two boys started in surprise at the fresh muddy imprints of a pair of bare feet. What was a barefooted man doing on the steps of a house in the middle of London? And where was the man? As they gazed, a remarkable sight met their eyes. A fresh footmark appeared from nowhere. Further footprints followed, one after another, descending the steps and progressing down the street. The boys followed, fascinated, until the muddy impressions became fainter and fainter, and at last disappeared altogether. The explanation of the mystery was really simple enough. The bewildered boys had been following a scientist who had just discovered how to make the human body transparent. Griffin, the scientist, had carried out experiment after experiment to prove that the human body could become invisible. Finally, he swallowed certain rare drugs and his body became as transparent as a sheet of glass, though it also remained as solid as glass. Brilliant scientist, though he was, Griffin was rather a lawless person. His landlord disliked him and tried to eject him. In revenge, Griffin set fire to the house. To get away, without being seen, he had to remove his clothes. Thus, it was that he became a homeless wanderer, without clothes, without money, and quite invisible, until he happened to step in some mud and left footprints as he walked. Okay, children, first of all, I'll give you the meanings of some words that's new for you. So children, take your pencil and write down the meanings in your textbook itself. See the first one, children. Muddy. M-U-D-D-Y. Muddy means full of mud. Imprints. Impressions. I-M-P-R-E-S-S-I-O-N-S. Impressions. Barefoot, without shoes. Okay, move to the next paragraph. Gazed. Gazed here. Stared. S-T-A-R-E-D. Stared. A remarkable sight. Remarkable means noticeable. Footmark. Footprint. Okay, next paragraph. Descending. What do you mean by descending? Coming down. Descending means coming down. And progressing. Going ahead. Progressing means going ahead. Fascinated. Fascinated means attracted. Fainter, dim or not clear. Fainter, dim or not clear. Explanation. What's the meaning of explanation here? Clarification. Explanation means clarification, mystery, secret. Next word, bewildered. Bewildered means highly stunned. S-T-U-N-N-E-D. Highly stunned or shocked. Invisible, unseen. Transparent, crystal clear. Lawless person. Griffin was rather a lawless person. A lawless person means not obeying any laws. Then, what do you mean by eject? Eject means drive out. Eject means drive out. Okay, so now let's see the explanation. Two boys suddenly noticed a few muddy imprints of bare feet. Okay, two boys suddenly noticed a few muddy imprints of bare feet. They started wondering what a barefoot man was doing on the steps of a house in the middle of London. So they started wondering. Who started wondering? The two boys. They started wondering what a barefoot man was doing on the steps of a house in the middle of London. They also started thinking, where was the man, as he was nowhere to be seen? So they also started thinking, where was the man, as he was nowhere to be seen? He was invisible. They suddenly saw another footmark. The man was still not visible. They started following the footprints. They followed until the footprints became invisible. They had been following a scientist. What's the name of that scientist, children? They had been following a scientist. It was Griffin. Okay, so they had been following a scientist who had discovered how to make a human body transparent or how to make a human body invisible. He was none other than Griffin, the scientist who had been working for a long time to see how to make a human body invisible. Suddenly, one day, he consumed certain drugs, which made his body invisible, though it could be felt. Which made his body invisible, though it could be felt. So, what kind of a person was Griffin? Griffin was a lawless person. As I told you, lawless means a person who is not ready to obey laws. So, he was a lawless person, as he had once burned down the house of his landlord. What's the reason, children? The landlord was trying to throw him out. The landlord was trying to eject him out of his house. Then, as he wanted to be invisible, he had to remove his clothes and then roam around without clothes and without money. So, did you get that, children? What kind of a person was Griffin? Griffin was a lawless person. Then what did he do, children? As he had once burned down the house of the landlord. What's the reason? Because the landlord was trying to throw him out of his house. Then he wanted to be invisible. He had to remove his clothes and then roam around without clothes and without any money. His presence was felt after he stepped in some mud, and his footprints could be seen as he walked. Got it, children? This is what is the content of the given portion. Okay, let's move to the next portion. Children, don't forget, read the lesson carefully. Clear? Let me read this. He escaped easily enough from the boys who followed his footprints in London. But his adventures were by no means over. He had chosen a bad time of the year to wander about London without clothes. It was midwinter. The air was bitterly cold and he could not do without clothes. Instead of walking about the streets, he decided to slip into a big London store for warmth. Closing time arrived, and as soon as the doors were shut, Griffin was able to give himself the pleasure of clothing and feeding himself without regard to expense. He broke open boxes and wrappers and fitted himself out with warm clothes. Soon, with shoes, an overcoat, and a wide-brimmed hat, he became a fully dressed and visible person. In the kitchen of the restaurant, he found cold meat and coffee, and he followed up the meal with sweets and wine taken from the grocery store. Finally, he settled down to sleep on a pile of quilts. If only Griffin had managed to wake up in good time, all might have been well. As it was, he did not wake up until the assistants were already arriving next morning. When he saw a couple of them approaching, he panicked and began to run. They naturally gave chase. In the end, he was able to escape only by quickly taking off his newly found clothes. So once more, he found himself invisible but naked in the chill January year. Okay, children, first of all, let's write the word meanings. Okay, children, first paragraph. Bitterly. Have you seen the word, children, bitterly? It's in the fourth line. The air was bitterly cold. The air was severely cold. It was severely cold. The air was severely cold. What's the reason, children? It was midwinter. So the meaning of the word bitterly, severely. Then come to the next paragraph. A wide-brimmed hat. Second paragraph. Fifth line, a wide-brimmed hat. Write the meaning, children. Having a wide boundary. A wide-brimmed hat means, having wide boundary. A hat with a wide boundary. Okay, next one, grocery, provision stores. Provision. Provision. Provision store. Okay, so quilts. Quilts means warm covers. Quilts, Quilts, warm covers. Then assistants, helpers. Assistants means helpers. Then next one, panicked. Panicked means, panicked, have you seen the word, children? Here it's in the first line, panicked. Panicked means got frightened. Panicked, got frightened. Okay, then chill. Chill January year. Chill, very cold. Chill, very cold. Okay, so let's see the explanation, children. Yes, he easily escaped from the boys who had followed him. He easily escaped from the boys who had followed him. But he had many more adventures coming up. Have you seen the second line, children? But his adventures were by no means over. What's the meaning? But he had many more adventures coming up. He had chosen a bad time to wander in London, as it was a winter season going on and the air was bitterly cold and the air was severely cold. So he decided to stay inside a store for warmth. As he went inside the store, have you seen the children? See, instead of walking about the streets, he decided to slip into a big London store for warmth. So he decided to stay inside the store for warmth. As he went inside the store, the closing time arrived. The doors of the store were shut and nobody was there inside. He got food to eat and wore new clothes without paying for them. He became visible again as he wore shoes, overcoat, and a hat. He then found cold meat and coffee in the kitchen and ate them too. After that, he also had sweets and wine from the grocery shop. Then he slept on the pile of quills. I gave you the meaning of quills. What's the meaning of quills, children? It's the meaning of quills. See, here is the meaning of quills. I told you. Quills means warm covers. So what did he do, children? After wearing the clothes and having food, what did he do? He slept on the pile of quills. He slept on the pile of warm covers kept nearby and could not wake up on time. Did you get the sentence, children? He could not wake up on time. See, the sentence is here. If only Griffin had managed to wake up in good time, all might have been well. What happened to him, children? He couldn't manage to wake up in good time, or he couldn't manage to wake up on correct time. So what happened to him, children? Yes, the next morning, when the shop assistants came and started approaching him, he became nervous and started running away. So what happened to him, children? Yes, as it was, he did not wake up until the assistants were already arriving next morning. So the next morning, what happened? When the assistants, they opened the door and saw him sleeping. So when the assistants came and started approaching him, he became nervous. And what did he do? Yes, he started to run. Then the assistants, they also started chasing him as well. He escaped only because he quickly removed his new clothes. So, how did he escape, children? Yes, they naturally gave chase. Who naturally gave chase? The shop assistants gave a chase. And in the end, he was able to escape only by quickly taking off his newly found clothes. So, in order to escape, what did he do, children? He removed his new clothes. And again, what's the condition of Griffin? Yes, he was invisible and naked, and he was having any money. Yes, he was invisible, naked, without any money in that chill air January. Okay, see the last sentence. So once more, he found himself invisible but naked in the chill January year. So when he removed his clothes to escape from the clothes assistants, once again he was invisible, and at the same time he became naked without any money in his hand. And what's the climate then, children? Yes, it was very cold. As I told you, it was midwinter. Okay, see, it's in the first paragraph itself. It was midwinter. So in that chill air, or in that chill January air, once again he found himself invisible but naked. Okay, so let's read the next portion. This time he decided to try the stock of a theatrical company. Children, the pronunciation is theatrical. So this time he decided to try the stock of a theatrical company in the hope of finding not only clothes but also something that would hide the empty space above his shoulder. Shivering with the cold, he hurried to Drury Lane, the center of the theatre world. He soon found a suitable shop. He made his way, invisible, upstairs and came out a little later wearing bandages around his forehead, dark glasses, false nose, big bushy side whiskers and a large hat. To escape without being seen, he carelessly attacked the shopkeeper from behind, after which he robbed him all the money he could find. So, first of all, let's see the new words, children. Okay, children, see. This time he decided to try the stock of a theatrical company. Here, stock means go down. Godown. Go down. Okay, So what it is? So this time he decided to try the go down of a theatrical company. Okay. So the meaning of stock is go down. Then the second paragraph, children. Whiskers. What's the meaning of whiskers? What's the meaning of whiskers? Cat has whiskers. So here, what's the meaning of whiskers? Hair on cheeks. Okay, big bushy side whiskers. Here, whiskers means hair on cheeks. Then, next word is carelessly. Carelessly means cruelly. Cruelly, Cruelly. Okay, so let's see the explanation, children. So, this time he decided to try the clothing of the theatrical world, as he knew he would surely find something there to cover his face with. Did you get the sentence, children? This time he decided to try the clothing of the theatrical world, as he knew he would surely find something there to cover his face with. He wanted to cover his face too. So he quickly reached Drury Lane. Then, what do you mean by Drury Lane? That's the center of the theatrical world. So that's the center of theatrical world, Drury Lane. So he quickly reached Drury Lane, the center of the theatrical world. As he was shivering with the cold, he found a shop according to his needs and entered into it. So at last, he found a suitable shop. What happened to him, children? Yes, as he was naked, he was shivering with the cold. So he soon found a shop according to his needs and entered into it. Then he came out wearing bandages around his forehead, dark glasses, false nose, and side whiskers. As I told you, what's the meaning of side whiskers? Big bushy hairs on cheeks and a large hat. So how did he came out, children? Yes, he came out from the shop by wearing bandages around his forehead, dark glasses, false nose, side whiskers, and a large hat too. Then, as he did not have any money, what did he do? See the last paragraph, children. Yes, see, to escape without being seen, he carelessly attacked the shopkeeper from behind, after which he robbed him all the money he could find. So what did he do with the shopkeeper? Yes, as he did not have any money, he attacked the shopkeeper cruelly, carelessly attacked the shopkeeper. He attacked the shopkeeper cruelly and robbed him of all his money. Okay, let's move on to the next paragraph. Eager to get away from crowded London, he took a train to the village of Iping, where he booked 2 rooms at the local inn. The arrival of a stranger at an inn in winter was in any case an unusual event. A stranger of such uncommon appearance set all tongues wagging. Mrs. Hall, the landlord's wife, made every effort to be friendly. But Griffin had no desire to talk. And to her, my reason for coming to Iping is a desire for solitude. I do not wish to be disturbed in my work. Besides, an accident has affected my face. Satisfied that her guest was an eccentric scientist, and in view of the fact that he had paid her in advance, Mrs. Hall was prepared to excuse his strange habits and irritable temper. But the stolen money did not last long, and presently Griffin had to admit that he had no more ready cash. He pretended, however, that he was expecting a check to arrive at any moment. Shortly afterwards, a curious episode occurred. Very early in the morning, a clergyman and his wife were awakened by noises in the study. Creeping downstairs, they heard a shink of money being taken from the clergyman's desk. Without making any noise, and with a poker grasped firmly in his hand, the clergyman flung open the door. Surrender. Okay, children, let's see the new words' meanings. See the first one, children. It's in the first paragraph. Inn. Yes, what's the meaning of inn? I-double-N. Inn means a small hotel. H-O-T-E-L. Inn means a small hotel. Then, unusual event. Underline the word, children. The second paragraph, second line. Unusual event. Unusual event means uncommon happening. Unusual event, uncommon happening. Then, wagging. What do you mean by wagging? You know the meaning of wagging. Dogs wag its tail. So here wagging means talk disapprovingly. Wagging, talking disapprovingly. Wag, W-A-G-G-I-N-G, wagging, talking disapprovingly. Okay, next one, solitude, that you know. It's in the same paragraph, S-O-L-I-T-U-D. Solitude means loneliness. Solitude, loneliness. Then, next one, irritable temper. Irritable temper means easily annoyed nature. Irritable temper, easily annoyed nature. Then coming to the second last paragraph, children. Curious episode occurred. What do you mean by curious episode occurred? Curious episode occurred means strange event happened. A strange event happened. Clergyman, you know, priest. Clergyman, priest. Then next one, chink. What's the meaning of that one? Chink of money, the sound of money. C-H-I-N-K, the sound of money. Next one, poker, P-O-K-E-R. Poker means an iron rod, R-O-D, rod, an iron rod. Grasped, held, H-E-L-D. Grasped means H-E-L-D, held. And the last one, flung open. Flung open, the clergyman flung open the door. Underline the words flung open, opened suddenly and forcefully. So, opened suddenly and forcefully, that's the meaning of flung open. Okay, then let's see the explanation, children. Eager to get away from crowded London, he took a train to the village of Iping, where he booked 2 rooms at the local inn. So what did he do, children? He felt that London was too crowded. So what did he do? He decided to go to a small village. What's the name of that village, children? Yes, he took a train to the village of Iping, I-P-I-N-G. So he decided to go to a small village, Iping. He took a train to Iping and booked 2 rooms in the local inn. As I told you, the local inn, what's the meaning of inn? A small hotel. So, he took a train to Iping and booked 2 rooms in the local inn. The event of a stranger coming and staying at the inn in the winter season was not a normal thing to happen. Did you get the sentence, children? The arrival of a stranger at an inn in winter was in any case an unusual event. So, it's an unusual event. The event of a stranger coming and staying at an inn in the winter season. It was not a normal thing to happen. As we know, winter season is not suitable for sightseeing and all. So, it's an unusual event. The arrival of a stranger at an inn in winter was in any case an unusual event. Okay, at the same time, his uncommon appearance set all tongues wagging. Have you seen the sentence, children? A stranger of uncommon appearance set all tongues wagging. What do you mean by that, children? Wagging, as I told you, in this context, wagging is talking disapprovingly. So everybody started talking about him. What's the reason, children? Everybody started talking about him because Griffin looked strange. Okay, then what about the condition of the landlord's wife? What's the name of the landlord's wife? See, here it is, Mrs. Hall, the landlord's wife. The landlord's wife, Mrs. Hall, made a lot of efforts. She made every effort to be friendly with him. Okay, so she made a lot of efforts to be friendly with Griffin. But he did not want to talk to her. He clearly told her that his reason for coming to Iping was for peace and quietness. He had a desire. What was his desire, children? He had a desire to be. He had a desire to be, or he had coming there. Yes, that is the reason, children. I'm sorry, children. See, here it is. So he clearly told her that his reason for coming to Iping was for peace and quietness. That means a desire for solitude. Have you seen the word, children? Here it's in the second paragraph. As I told you, solitude means loneliness. So what did he do? See, he clearly told her that his reason for coming to Iping was for peace and quietness. He had a desire for solitude. So he did not wish to be disturbed in his work. Then he also told her that an accident had affected his face, due to which he had to cover it. Okay, so here is the paragraph, children. The arrival of a stranger at an inn in winter was in any case an unusual event. A stranger of such uncommon appearance set all tongues wagging, and Mrs. Hall, the landlord's wife, made every effort to be friendly. But Griffin had no desire to talk. He told her clearly. What did he say? My reason for coming to Iping is a desire for solitude. Yes, his reason for coming to Iping was for peace and quietness, a desire for solitude. So he did not wish to be disturbed in his work. Besides, he said something more. He also told her that an accident had affected his face, and that's why he had covered his face. Okay, an accident had affected my face. Clear? Okay, next paragraph. Mrs. Hall accepted that her new guest was a strange scientist, an eccentric. So, see the sentence, satisfied that her guest was an eccentric scientist and in view of the fact that he had paid her in advance. So, Mrs. Hall accepted that her new guest was a strange scientist and eccentric, but she was ready to excuse his temper. What's the meaning, children? She was ready to excuse his temper. What kind of a temper? Irritable temper. I told you what's the meaning of irritable temper. Irritable temper. Irritable temper means easily annoyed nature. Okay, so what's the condition of Mrs. Hall? She accepted that her new guest was a strange scientist and eccentric. So she was ready to excuse his temper, irritable temper. She was ready to excuse his irritable temper and habits as he had paid her in advance. Did you get the reason, children? Because he had paid her in advance, so she was ready to excuse him. Then the time came when his money was over. He had no ready cash available for further payment at the inn. So what happened to him, children? But the stolen money did not last long, and presently Griffin had to admit that he had no more money, no more ready cash. So what's the condition? Then the time came when his money was over and he had no ready cash available for further payment at the inn. Then he had to pretend that he was waiting for a check which would arrive at any moment. Then something really strange happened within a short period. So did you get the last sentence, children? Yes, he pretended that he was expecting a check to arrive at any moment. So he had no ready cash with him. So he pretended. What did he do, children? He had to pretend that he was waiting for a check which would arrive at any moment or at any time. Then, shortly afterwards, a curious episode occurred. What's the meaning, children? Yes, then something really strange happened within a short period. So, let's see what happened then. A clergyman and his wife were awakened in a very early morning by some noises in their study room. What's the reason, children? See, next character, a clergyman and his wife. A clergyman, you know what's the meaning of clergyman? Clergyman means a priest. A clergyman and his wife were awakened in a very early morning. Why, children? Because they heard some noises in their study room. So when they were coming down, see the sentence, creeping downstairs. So when they were coming downwards or when they were coming down, they could hear the sound of money being taken from the clergyman's desk. See, creeping downwards, they heard the shink of money being taken from the clergyman's desk. So they could hear the sound of money being taken from the clergyman's desk. The clergyman, what he was doing there, children? Yes, creeping downwards, they heard the shink of money being taken from the clergyman's desk. So without making any noise and with a poker grasped firmly in his hand, the clergyman flung open the door. So what did he do, children? Yes, the clergyman held an iron rod. I told you the meaning of poker is iron rod. The clergyman held an iron rod in his hand and flung the door open. What did he do, children? What's the meaning of flung open the door? Yes, the door, it was suddenly opened. It was opened forcefully. Okay, so as he opened the door forcefully, he said, surrender. Yes, what's the reason, children? Because he thought he had caught the thief. Did you get the last one, children? Without making any noise and with a poker grasped firmly in his hand, the clergyman flung open the door and said loudly. What did he say loudly, children? Yes, as he opened the door, he said loudly, surrender. Why? What's the reason? Because he thought that he had caught the thief. Okay, so children, here comes an end of this video. The rest of the lesson's recorded class will be sent today itself, children. And don't miss it. And read the lesson carefully and write down the notes too. Okay, children. Have a nice day, children. As I told you, the rest of the lessons recorded video will be sent today itself. Don't miss it, children. Don't forget to watch it. Read the lesson carefully and write down the notes too. Okay, children. Thank you. Have a nice day.